Hello, possums. So good to see you. Dr. Lena here, your Aussie sociologist. And here we go with another installment of Days of Our Lives. That's what it feels like, doesn't it? But after all the distractions and disturbances and out and out horror, the last few days of the cat fight has been bliss, has it not? It's given us all a break for a minute. It's a chance to have a giggle watching these two inadequate slinging mud like elementary school kids. And it's just such a relief for a minute to have them attacking each other instead of attacking democracy. I'm sure they'll get back to that soon. So, you've got the one with early onset dementia, which is hard to tell with Trump because he was always so inarticulate, and the ketamine fueled sperm donor trading threats. Uh, and they're big threats. They're big threats. So the Yeti's carrying on about cutting the EV contract, the good sweetheart deal that Elon had, and Elon coming back. And apart from saying JD Vance, he sort of got around, he didn't say actually the Yeti should be impeached. Someone else said it and he just said yes. And JD Vance should be president was part of that original tweet. And then JD Vance gets asked about it. And what does he say? I stand by the president. Well, of course you fucking do. That's your job. You're the vice president. That's where you physically stand in photos, like as if you'd trust a word out of his mouth. But anyway, I digress. If you're a new viewer, get used to that. But what I want to look on first of all is JD, no, what's his face? The Muskrats has said, I am going to stop the Dragon satellites or spaceships or whatever they are, which are absolutely integral to the US space program. That's a dreadful threat, and it's sort of got lost in the schoolyard exchange. But it's also a mighty reminder that that's why you don't privatise and let rich individuals have so much power in your national defence and security. It's staggering. So they're called dragon things. What are they? Mm. But whatever they are, dragon spacecraft. Spacecraft is very vague, isn't it? I guess they mean spy satellites and they're trying to make it a bit more palatable. So I want to know, is he actually going to do that? Will he be allowed to do that? Because that's actually big time. All right. I don't know if you saw during the week, there's been some delicious exchanges too. Elon Musk's trans daughter, Vivian Wilson, said, such beautiful things in the world as Elon was getting punished. And then one of the immediate exes, the one that's had the new baby that he's barely cast a gaze upon, has offered Trump tips on how to break up with Elon. Oh. But will he pull out the dragons? Surely a real contract, even if you contract out part of your space system, the contract would say you can't just pull it because you've had a bad day and your drugs are wearing off. Surely there is a clause in there. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Okay. Oh, upside down cards. Mm, I'm not getting catastrophic cards. I don't think he'll actually do it. Sorry, where I'm set up. I don't know if you could see those cards clearly. Um, we've got the Page of Cups. This is the stinky fish. Saying this, hasn't worried the Yeti because he has no idea how the government works. He has no idea how the world works, and he certainly doesn't know how the space program works. So it's not him. I think it's people at NASA who are very worried by this rotten threat, making a strategy here, world in their hands. I think this is a combination. It's a combination of the rest of the world who have Starlink contracts are trying to get out of them, and this would reinforce and accelerate that. I think NASA's trying to work out how can we acquire other satellite technology of this caliber just because. Now, this is normally the compelling speaker. It's a bit of my Michelle Obama card here, was a bit of an inspiration. But then we have legal action, like I said. I think there'll be a legal reason. But I think what this card's talking about too is stern words are going to be spoken about this going forward. I think this will bring another body of people, military types, into the tent. They should not be sleeping at night over this threat. So I think this combination here of alternative strategies and legal, I don't think he'll be able to do it. Surely. Sure. I don't know. Mm, mm, mm. So now going forward, oh, let's get the Epstein files out of the way. I'm not going to read on them. My position is this. We all knew they were playboys in New York together. Of course, the Yeti's name is going to be throughout the files. Why? People are acting surprised, as if it's, just imagine if Trump's name turned up in those files. Oh, spare me. We all knew. Okay, so I think it's a fizzer. I think it's actually going to be more of a risk to the reputation of other men, including Clinton and others, because um, a lot of men, a lot of powerful men were on the Lolita Express over 20 years. I think it's going to impact more reputations of other people, right? Not the Trumpet. Okay, so now let me just check my notes here. Um, oh, and another news story, the FBI arrested a guy who allegedly threatened the Yeti, and it's transpired that he couldn't possibly have written that letter because his literacy in English is simply not the same language as that letter. But will there be an apology? I doubt it. And ICE is now full Gestapo mode. They're in full military gear in the streets of LA. I heard from a Georgia viewer during the week too. A lot of restaurants and places are closing down, and they're putting signs up with variations on this saying, "We are closing to protect our staff and our customers," because they're raiding schools and churches and courthouses. What? Mango Mussolini territory. Yeah. Okay, now I wanted here to talk about China for a minute, please. Now, it's also joy watching Caroline Levitt. I know everyone's calling her Taco Bell. I still prefer Bride of Chucky. So, Bride of Chucky's trying to pretend that these trade deals are going ahead. And it's harder and harder when other countries are now actually calling them out on it. So the classic was 2 days ago when she went on and said, oh, yes, China wants to talk and this and that. Well, China came back on Thursday and said in Chinese media, because we get a lot more direct information from China and the rest of Asia, probably than you guys do, said no, there was a phone call that was instigated by the President of the United States. That's it. Now, normally, all parties pretend deals are at least making progress, and it was a positive conversation, and, we're confident going forward that this will happen and that will happen. They just said no, there was a phone call initiated by the president. In other words, she answered the phone and said, "Oh, you're still in that space, are you? See you later." Now, I want to have a quick look here. Sweeping the globe, are any deals happening? Because as far as I'm aware, there was the two-page bit of, mumbled nonsense from the UK saying we'll think about it. But I don't know that there's been a single deal. How is this going to affect the Yeti and Scott Bessant and Peter Navarro and all these guys who are saying everything's going so well, they just can't believe how well it's going? Deals, international deals. There's the deal. Well, no, this is crystal clear. If you were learning tarot, this would be the easiest of all. Here's the deals being made. There's four of wands. But there's all the legal chaos around it because trade deals usually take between 3 and 5 years to negotiate, and they are intensely legal documents. But apart from imposing the tariffs, at the same time, starting with Canada and Mexico, the Yeti broke deals. So just like he blew up NAFTA and then he replaced it with the unpronounceable UMSCA. So this is still filtering its way through the legal system from a few years ago. So these things are much slower than that, but legally they're not happy. It's fool's gold, and everyone is looking everywhere else. So I think, I hope, because as regular viewers know, I'm not thrilled to my bootstraps with Albo, despite his big win. I hope he's going to cancel the nuclear submarine contract. It was a stupid contract at inception because it's a fantasy by the hawks in Australia that we could hold back China should it choose to invade by having half a dozen submarines. Are they not joking? So we, the public, are expected to spend billions of dollars. We offered the contract and agreed to France, then we broke the deal and hustled over to the US. And now we would be paying tariffs on our own steel to have them built and then go. No, just no. Mm. Now, Dr. Annie Andrews. So it's all been going off in South Carolina. So if any of you are astro-astrologists, who do astrology via place, something's going on in South Carolina because there was a special election. Yes, small, I know, but it went to the Dem by 76.2% vote. Awesome. But also in South Carolina, Dr. Annie Andrews, I'll pin up her new ad campaign. So she's going up against Lindsay, Queen of Swords, Graham in South Carolina. So it's a big mountain to climb, not because he's any good, but because she's talking sense and you know how it is. So let's have a quick look at Annie Andrews. How's that going to go? Annie Andrews. Annie Andrews. Annie Andrews. That's good. Well, hmm, I think she's got a chance, not the biggest chance. These aren't cards of, whoa, she's taking it out. And there's a long way to go till the midterms, and there's still an if in front of the midterms. However, so this card that we just had as fool's gold, its more traditional meaning is an ace, which is an offer, an opportunity, a brand new day. She represents that. Wait till you see this ad if you haven't seen it. Right? Okay, sensible woman. It doesn't hurt that she's blonde and the GOP seem fixated on blondes, but I won't hold that against her. She's mature in the head. She looks too young to have the kids she's got, but that's because I'm coming from a different perspective, let's say. Okay, so she's going to appeal to the middle class, which is important. In other words, I don't think she's going to crack the MAGA mentality, but the middle class who must be hungry for sanity, she's going to appeal to them. The death card, I think, is a good card in the sense of running over Lindsay, Queen of Swords, Graham. And she has, this has traditionally been my Biden card. So I don't know how engaged he still is, but I think it means the Dems would support her in a way they don't support AOC, right? And the way they're actually quite uncomfortable with Jasmine Crockett and other firebrands. I think the fact she's a pediatrician and all of that comes into play, and she will have Dem support. But it's too early to predict an actual outcome, but it's just gave us the lay of the land. I think she will go forward and capture the middle class. Is it enough? Wait and see. Okay. Now, next we had, the Associated Press. The Associated Press has been banned from the Oval Office, Air Force One, and Mar-a-Lago, i.e., everywhere, meaning they will be totally dependent. We, you as Americans, we, those of you who are watching from other countries, will be totally dependent on the Bride of Chucky to give us our news. So I want to have a look. Will that stand? It's shocking. It's again, it's up there with the ICE agent in helmets and camouflage gear, and the ones who aren't in helmets are masked, and all of it. It's really bad. And let me just say at this second, I don't know of any other country in the world that is governed by tweets. It's become so normalized. The Yeti sent a tweet, and now this is happening, and now that's happening. And it's so I can remember even going back to the very beginning of his administration on day 2 or 3 or something, and he sent out a tweet that was obviously about policy. And it was ridiculed in the legacy media then. Oh, he sent a tweet. He thinks it's going to happen. It has to go through Congress. Remember those days, right? Well, now it just has to have an Adderall addled thumb moment and everything changes. It is not normal. Other countries do not do this. They actually have press conferences, even quite repressive countries. The leaders might have tweets about this and that, but none of them think it's policy, and none of the people in other countries think it's policy. It might be a clue to how they're thinking about this topic or that topic, sure, but it's not a thing. So this is about press repression. And then we're going to have a look at the Yeti's health, which I haven't done for a long time. Okay. So the Associated Press ban. All right. Now, Oh, what's happening with my cards? I managed to spin the pack around. Associated Press. Well, yes, they're unhappy. Oh, my cards have got hopelessly mixed now. I don't read reversals. We'll just have them right way up. Look at this. Journalists themselves are upset by this, but also everyone should be upset by this. It's a major measure of a working democracy. And again, I can't imagine any other country doing this. And that's what happens with this flood the zone. Thanks, Steve Bannon. Okay, so they're very upset. Keeping things close for now, they will find other things. Don't forget, Trump White Houses always leak like sieves because everyone is unhappy. So they'll keep their sources to themselves and still put out information. Part of that information will be in the Twitterverse, but this is going for a legal challenge. This is karmic, this is big, this is important. Why? For all those reasons I just said, right? It's a bastion of democracy. All right, now, speaking of bastions of democracies that have already caved in, um, some of those big legal firms who bent the knee, kissed the ring, licked the sandals, did all that, some of them actually offered ransom money, hundreds of millions of dollars. We forget because everything gets, lost in the whirlpool. But these were big, significant law firms. And now the big companies, including McDonald's, not my favorite company in the world, but it's huge, etc. I think Chase and Stanley, JP Morgan, big, big companies are avoiding those legal firms saying, we want lawyers who will fight, not roll over. So they're being humiliated in legal terms, and I hope they lose every client. All right, so we're going to look at the Yeti's health. Now, he's a walking cardio event, isn't he? But it could take the form of a stroke or anything else. We'll just have a look at his health, and I'll use some extra Italian cards on this. So the Yeti's health. He's not looking a well possum, is he? Now, sorry, don't write to me saying I shouldn't call him a possum. No, I take that back. He's not looking a well demon. That's better. Let's have a look. Just bear with me. I'll have to sort these cards. Oh, that's big. Oh, that's why we're not seeing him. Okay. All right, hang on here. But out of 4 cards, he gets 2 majors, which isn't good in itself. Okay, so this is the Yeti in the old days, living the good life. We all know he hasn't eaten a vegetable since the potatoes were tipped on his head in 1956 or something. So he's got away with it. He's a strong constitution until now. This can be the card of travel. This can be the card of the end of a huge cycle. This can mean various things. But in this context, I think it's a global breakdown of his system. We're not seeing him. His doctors, plural, because I think it is heart and head and other things simultaneously. Name an organ. I think it's like that. Look at this. Name an organ and it's not functioning. They're pulling out all the stops to keep him with us. But I think his health is much worse than we actually thought. So let's have a look here. I just heard blows a gasket. I think he's actually going to blow a gasket. That's more head. Wow. All right. Oh, oh, I love the card. Look at the very first card. I haven't even used these cards for 6 months. Look at the first card. Dottore. Let's see what else is there. Oh, they're right. Okay. The woman in service. Now, that's not Melania. No, no. The woman in service, and this is the writing. So it's like this could be actually Taco Bell herself, Caroline Levitt, in the sense of having to keep covering up with bouquets of flowers about his health. Writing. Is it writing a will? Is it writing prescriptions? What's the writing about? Let's pull another couple of cards. There's some writing involved in this. My feel is it's the doctors, they'd be talking, but symbolically writing, saying he's not up to this. Like if he was just your normal, repulsive, arrogant, bullying, narcissistic tycoon, they'd be saying, stop working, right? But they can't. Maybe they're like, see how he's thinking here, thinking about wanting to write. They want him to stop, but he can't because he's too busy undermining your rights and the economy. Let's pull a few more of the Italians. The Grand Signore, that's him, conversations being had, and melancholy. Okay, that's him symbolically, the big, the big chief. Look at these worried conversations. This is over the press secretary. How to spin it. This is the conversations, how to spin his health. Melancholia is the old-fashioned word for depression. I think, all jokes aside, I think he's chronically depressed. Things aren't going like he thought they would. He's not being adored. The oxygen for him was the rallies. Thousands of people clapping and cheering. Who cares about the empty seats? They would shield his view from that. I think he's actually depressed. I've never thought of that before. And blowing a gasket, I think it's a combination of being depressed and angry. And there is a school of thought depression is anger turned inwards. And you could see the converse of that. Anger is depression turned outwards. Food for thought. I think he's depressed and at the same time so angry that it's got to give way. But you would not want to be roaming the halls of the White House right now. You really wouldn't. All right, guys, love you all. And I'll do another vid before I go away. Ciao, ciao. Bye.